Hello, John again. Thank you for to the people who have been watching these videos. I appreciate that you actually are taking the time to watch these videos and comment on them and like them and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I just appreciate it very much. Today, I thought I would talk about how I do adventures in RPGs because I do them a little different than most people do. And I came about this way of doing things from powered by Apocalypse games. So Apocalypse World style games like Apocalypse World, Monster Hearts, Monster of the Week, Urban Shadows, which is what we're looking at right now. This is the rules to Urban Shadows. But what they have in Apocalypse World games is countdown clocks, and they kind of look like this. And it's essentially, whoops, okay, I just lost it. Yeah. All right, let's go back. All right, here we are. So it's like a damn it, I keep losing it. It's like a clock. If I could just stop going off the page. Okay, here it is. So it's like a clock basically. So the idea is you're starting at 12, and then you're counting down, and then if it reaches 12, then something bad happens. So this first section between 12 and 3, that's some kind of event, and then between 3 and 6, this little pie section, that's another event, and then what is 6 to 9, and then 9 to 10, 10 to 11, and then 12 midnight. That's when the bad thing happens, and the bad thing happens. It's once it reaches 12, it's too late. Okay, so the basically it's a six-step process. There's one, two, three, four, five, six pieces of the pie, right? So in Apocalypse World, they draw them onto the clock. They draw the events that are happening onto the clock, just like you can see here. 12 to 3 o'clock is Anton sends his vampire drug dealers out from the projects into Rico's territory, and then it progresses around until Rico's pack seizes all of the areas around the towers, pushing out the vampires completely. You can see that right there. So that's the idea, right? So it's a countdown clock, and the reason why this is good is that it's it's not an external patron coming to the player characters and making them an offer on an adventure. So it's when an external person comes to the player characters and goes, "I'll give you 200 gold to go rescue my daughter." There's always kind of this pushback of like, why should we help this guy? Maybe he's setting us up. Maybe 200 gold's not enough money, and the player characters don't really care. It has nothing to do with them. All they're doing is getting 200 gold, or whatever it might be. And with the countdown clocks, what I have happen is at midnight, the end of the countdown clock, something bad happens to the player characters directly. So whatever is happening with the countdown clock directly affects at least one of the player characters. So they're either going to, lose something, lose a valuable NPC, lose an item, whatever it might be. They might die, maybe that could be a result of it, but it's a more personal thing, and it's also less of it's less that they have to accept the adventure. It's more they're already involved in the adventure, and they need to figure out what's going on before something bad happens. So let me show you an example of what I do. So I've got one of my old games here. This is from February 16th. This was an Urban Shadows game from February 16th. And Urban Shadows is a game where it's like Dresden Files, kind of, where it's modern times, but there's magic, and there's vampires, there's wizards, and there's fairies and all that kind of stuff, and they're all living in the modern city, but it's kind of under the radar and all that kind of stuff. So in this particular game, I had this front call, or that's what I call them, as fronts. They're countdown clocks. I should just call them countdown clocks. Inside of Apocalypse World, they're called fronts. I'm sorry if I use that terminology. I also call them threats sometimes, but they're countdown clocks. But basically, I wrote it like this in a table rather than an actual clock shape. So this one's called a swinging wake, and I broke it down by what are they trying to do, who's the cast of this, and the basic idea here is that some significant NPC had died, and he was involved with the fairy faction inside of the city. So the satyrs were having a wake for him, and a satyr wake I figured would be kind of like if Dionysus came to your town with his maenads. It's just like a devastating event if when the satyrs have a party, like it gets out of hand and could ultimately destroy the city because satyrs party hard. So at my 3 o'clock slot, what I had is that the respected wizard Ludwig had passed away, and the Wild faction, which is the fairy faction, is mourning. Many of the Fae from all over the realm turned up to pay respects. So that's just something I would tell the player characters, and just so that they would know, and maybe have a representative from the fairy faction show up and talk to them. And not a big deal. That's so for player characters, this is like, well, okay, whatever. The fairies are sad. That's great. They would go about their business. But they know because I've told them I have these countdown clocks going on. So if they're smart, they'll start inquiring about this morning. But if they don't really care, they're not really involved, or they don't really think about it, they might just let it play out. So the next step, the next countdown on my countdown clock, is that they become vaguely aware of happy flute music resonating and penetrating all the usual noise of the city. It seems to be coming from the fairy faction. Others do not hear it yet. Crowds of wild people appear wearing masks of animals: goats, horses, bears, pigs, dogs. So these are, revelers. So people are kind of being driven mad by the satyr music. And then traffic jams, the next step, traffic jams start to happen in the area. There's signs of neglect, cars on fire, babies left abandoned in the street. So now, once this starts happening, the player characters will be like, hey, what's going on here? Something's happening. They might then take action. Then it gets worse. Then an important NPC gets in trouble, or it disappears, is sucked into the party of the satyrs. And then at 11 o'clock, satyrs light a part of the city on fire. And, so the actual city that they're living in starts to burn down. And then at midnight, the satyrs level the city. So now it's not actually at midnight or 10 o'clock or whatever. It's that's just that countdown clock that I'm talking about. So the question is how quickly to move that countdown forward. In Apocalypse World, what happens is when you roll and you fail a roll, then the GM has the opportunity to do a GM move, which could be, causing damage to a character or separating the party or something like that. But it could also be advancing the countdown clock. Now, in other games, like if it's Dungeons and Dragons or something like that, and you missed a roll, I don't know that you'd want to advance the countdown clock because you roll a lot in D&D. But maybe, or maybe you could say something like, you can get a re-roll, but I get to advance the countdown clock, or something along those lines. Or you could just, play it by ear. If you feel like the things are starting to stagnate, or if things have gone on for long enough, then you advance the countdown clock. And then I have some custom moves for this particular countdown clock. And then I also have a health track for the countdown clock. And what this is it's another countdown clock that I use just to count down basically the quote unquote damage that's done to this countdown clock. So it starts out with a lot of people partying, and then some of the party goers start passing out, then the satyrs start getting drunk, and then they pass out, and then finally at the end of it, the satyrs say, "We had a great party." Now, what would cause damage to a countdown clock? Well, that could be anything that the players do that would address that situation. So in this case, it's a party that the satyrs are having. So however the players address that party, I would consider 1 to 2 damage, depending on what they do, to that countdown. So in other words, if they well, they might fight the satyrs, right? That might be one way of dealing with them. That would be a very typical Dungeons and Dragons type of solution. But they might also do things like try to relocate the party. Maybe they want to move the party out of town. Maybe they party with them so that they get it out of their system, or whatever. Maybe they try to cage the satyrs or something like that. But any of this type of stuff would cause the countdown to be resolved, and as the countdown quote unquote takes damage, this is the different status of what's happening with that particular countdown. Now, we usually with games all have more than one countdown clock going on. So this is one about a Rakshasa that was in that particular area, and then I had this one with a voodoo duchess, and again, same thing where it's just a series of countdowns. In this case, she had kind of the ability to do mind control, turn somebody into a zombie. So at midnight, for this particular countdown, one of the player characters becomes a zombie slave of the Duchess. So in all of these countdowns, the player characters have something they care about at stake. So it's a little bit more motivating for them to get involved and figure out what's going on with the game and get themselves involved in the adventure rather than having, some guy go and hire them. So, anyways, I don't know if that was useful to you guys or not, but that's how I do the adventures. And I'm not saying this is the way that you have to do your adventures at all or anything like that, but this works for me very well, and people seem to enjoy this. They know that something is going on in my games, and they know they got to figure out what it is. So it's a little bit of a mystery. It's that so I mean it's fun for them to try to kind of figure out what's going on before all the whatever hits the fan, and yeah, it's a good time. And also it keeps the game moving forward because I always have something to say. There's always something new happening, and it's always evolving. And in this case, I think three threats going on at this. Or three, I said threats. Countdown clocks. I meant that's what I meant. I had three countdown clocks going on. Usually for a campaign, I would have around six. Kind of depends on your group of players, how proactive they are, I guess. Okay. Anyways, that's a little video. So hope that was useful to you. Thank you. Goodbye.